Welcome to Tales from the Switch Roll, where I, Jim, look back at some of the weird and wonderful games from the Nintendo Switch. This time I get squished like a bug in Hollow Knight. Created by Australian indie studio Team Cherry, the title started out on Kickstarter in November 2014, with it quickly reaching its funding goal and flying far beyond. The game would release on PC in February 2017, before moving to Switch in June 2018 and the other consoles in September that same year. By that point, the game was a huge hit, catapulting it to the indie must-haves for Nintendo Switch. Hollow Knight is a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania with Souls-like elements, having the player explore a fallen kingdom called Hallownest. You play as a silent protagonist Bug, the Knight, who has to platform around areas, exploring to find items and fight enemies. It has a nail which it uses as a short-range sword alongside projectile magic attacks. Combat is very tough, with a large variety of enemies and bosses who use varied attack patterns that have to be learned to beat. Exploration is a key component, delving deep into this strange fallen world to find items, geo, the game's currency, and new abilities. These give you new capabilities like wall jump or double jump, allowing the player even more exploration options. Geo can be used to buy different items, the charms being the main one that players can attach to change abilities, such as Long Nail that allows a player to hit enemies from further away, or Dash Master to dash down and more often. Oh, and keep an ear and eye out for Conifer on your travels. He will either sell you a map of each new area. But during the exploration you will come across bosses that usually gatekeep an area. Often they will have multiple phases with different attack patterns. If you succumb to death, they will reload you at the last bench you rested at, leaving your shade version to be fought again to regain all the geo you just lost, hence the Souls-like element. This can be tough depending on the location, and if it's right next to the boss it adds to the stress, though these can become some of the most memorable moments within the game. The visuals are absolutely stunning. The game is littered with incredible designs for the characters, enemies and the world. The thick-lined, cartoony style juxtaposed with this dark, gloomy, almost smoggy Victorian London. The mood is excellent, feeling like a place falling into disrepair and lost to the overworld and the beasts. All the art was hand-drawn by Ari Gibson and scanned directly into the game engine. The simple design was intentional to ensure the game wouldn't take forever to make. Each individual area really stands out, whether it's the starry lights hanging over Dirtmouth, the shocking pink gems of Crystal Peak, or the bubbling acid lakes of Fog Canyon. It's not only crucial to have such clear visual clues to the new area you've stumbled into, it has this incredible through line of the same gloomy 19th century buildings littered throughout. The boss designs are fantastic too, usually keeping to the bipedal bug design and having them so much bigger than you. This makes them really intimidating, though still surprisingly agile in fights. As you'd expect, Hornet is my favourite design and character in the game, having multiple fights and appearances throughout. Shout out to the journal with all the designs and descriptions of each bug. The soundtrack was created by Australian composer and pianist Christopher Larkin. The award-winning musician has worked on TV series and documentaries with multiple games as well, such as Pac-Man 256, Expand and Moonlighter 2 The Endless Vault. The music is really good, often simplistic piano tunes that perfectly accompany the lost and lonely player, building up to a rousing orchestral crash as a boss fight kicks off. Pleasingly, he's returning as composer for the sequel Silk Song. There's also great sound design choices, such as the slash as a nail as you attack, and the mad dashing out of the way of attack, though my favourite is the shopkeeper's "burr-burr-burr" every time you talk to her in Dirtmouth. How this game really hooked me in was the difficult but fair combat. It's really not easy and boss fights can take multiple attempts. As an example, there's the False Knight fight, who uses a massive mace to swing hard at you. However, down it after a bunch of hits and the maggot will spill out of his helmet where you can do big damage to. Each boss has multiple phases, meaning a lot of learning each one, when to heal, dodge and attack. None of the bosses are impossible, you just have to be patient, something that took me a fair while to understand. As a reward you get a ton of geo and usually access to a new area. If you do get stuck, however, exploration allows a player to go off for more geo to spend on items, or changing the charms used to hopefully alter the balance of a fight. I actually found going off to explore, tackling new enemies and working on my attacks led me just to get better each time I was blocked by a boss. It's a real game for the hardcore though, as not all the bosses are listed on the map, so you have to physically find each of them if you want to 112% the game. The satisfaction and relief after beating a particularly tough one is off the chart. How this game stands out is the sense of discovery, whether that's finding new shortcuts or whole new areas you didn't even know existed. The exploration is a lot of fun, though daunting as you never know who you have to fight next, but usually rewarding with plenty of items to find. Some of their later abilities such as the Shade Cloak are really hidden off the beaten track, but a joy to find. I often got lost, and though this played some part in me putting the game down for some years, it taught me the importance of learning this world rather than relying solely on the map. It's rare for me to get so invested into an environment that doesn't have any building or infrastructure to create. It's just you going around and taking out monsters, mastering the routes and finding your way. Hellenist actually changes as you progress, forcing new routes and opening up new secret discoveries to keep the exploration interesting throughout. This title is ideal on Switch 2, especially in handheld. It looks and runs really well, though I do miss the OLED screen. The real darks, blacks and purples absolutely pop on that amazing screen. Still, it's great blown up on the bigger one here on Switch 2. It's actually a game changer for me that actually helped me get through this game in handheld mode, though the new shoulder buttons, being much larger and far more comfortable, means I am able to calmly level up my combat skills and avoid so many mishits. It's listed on how long to beat at 27 hours long to complete, which is actually my timing, and 64 hours to do everything. The release contains all 3 DLCs, which seem to alter the base game somewhat. Usually I would ponder how much replayability there is, but considering I only hit 62% completion and forgot most of the world, and the gap between starting and finishing is an easy one to recommend a replay. The Steam concurrent playing count hitting its highest since launch shows that some people seem to agree. Where to start with the studio Team Cherry? From most accounts they seem awesome. The indie studio based in Adelaide, South Australia, and was formed in 2014. The studio's mission was to build crazy exciting worlds for the player to explore and conquer. The core team is made up of Ari Gibson, William Pellin and Jack Vine. Gibson is listed as co-director and worked on countless projects across film, games and music videos, alongside running the animation studio Mechanical Apple. Known for modding games since before computers had colour, his long history of work includes The Blob and Transformers Revenge of the Fallen video games. Pellin is also listed as co-director and has been designing and making games for years, particularly wanting to create those crazy worlds for people to explore in. His notable work on games include Tomcat and Hungry Night. Finally, there's Vine, who is the coder who not only optimized the game but added a raft of new features, including the final free content pack Godmaster. Hollow Knight was conceived by Gibson and Pellin in 2013 during the Ludum Dare Game Jam, a multi-year event tasking devs to make a game within 3 days around a theme. Then known as Hungry Night, the protagonist kills bugs to stave off starvation. Interestingly, the game was not very well rated, with the Newgrounds website initially listing it as just 1 out of 5, though it's since jumped up to 4. The devs then decided to work on another jam, this time themed around Beneath the Surface, but actually missed the deadline. This, however, gave them the idea to create a game with an underground setting, deep old kingdom and insect characters. Game influences included Metroid, Zelda 2 and Mega Man X. They then took the game to Kickstarter looking for 35,000 Australian dollars. The game went well past this, hitting 57,000 and hitting multiple stretch goals, one of which was the Silksong DLC that would eventually become the sequel game. Interestingly, the title was intended to come to the Wii U, though this has stopped and moved to the Switch following the prior console's cancellation. Hollow Knight would become a smash hit, with a hunger from fans worldwide for Silksong news, whilst the devs quietly got on with game making. Scoring a spectacular 90 on Metacritic, Hollow Knight is roundly cited as one of the best ever Metroidvanias. Interestingly, it didn't win many awards at launch, losing out to Cuphead as the best debut indie game at the Game Awards. It did win twice at the Australian Game Awards though. Looking around, sale numbers were scant. The last data I could find was over 2.8 million copies sold across all platforms as of February 2019. But with the Silksong release date announced, it was said that Hollow Knight has hit 15 million copies sold, which is absolutely wild. That's more than treble the best-selling Metroid game. It seems to have sold more and more, particularly as the wait for the sequel has gone on. Is there a harder form of entertainment to pick back up after a long time away? I didn't play this game for 4 whole years. I'd gotten tired of being so lost and losing one too many boss fights. I'd actually already done 20 hours in the game, so it was actually nearing the end. Coming back one Saturday morning, with Silksong on the horizon in late 2025, I was determined to go again. But it took me another hour just to get my bearings, let alone any sense of combat competence. It's brutal, though actually relearning the map is the hardest part. Fights you can practice, whereas you have to physically travel around to know where things are. In other entertainment, this is far easier. You can rewind a film or reread a previous chapter in a book. Here, the content is already done. You can't replay it without starting over, so it's another large hurdle. But it's so damn worth it. I absolutely adore this game now. Classic case of the problem being me, not the game. Patience in combat and being methodical is crucial, though finding a few new abilities that sync with my combat technique was a game changer. I only really used focus to heal rather than attack enemies. Survivability was crucial to my careful fighting technique. As for complaints, I would prefer a couple more fast travel zones to get around, though I was astounded to see that these were only added much later post-launch, so I should actually count myself lucky to have them at all. I hate that you need a charm just to see where you are on the map. Exploration is tough enough already. A couple of the bosses have the resting benches far too long away. I really don't like the long travel back to get into a fight, though fortunately it was pretty infrequent. Small nitpicks to be sure, as this is an all-time classic and I'm very excited to dive straight into Silksong. Don't be put off by the combat though, it's tough but more than doable, as shown with its broad mainstream appeal, which is always great to see. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more weekly Nintendo Switch video game essays. Right, let's see how I stack up against the grim troop.